Good afternoon. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP Bangladesh. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP Bangladesh. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us till the end. Honorable Knowledge Seeker, today I am your host for the afternoon. My name is Badhun Dash. I am from Bangladesh and Knowledge Seeker. I am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. IGP is a social and ISO certified international training institute. In 3 years, we already 70 million plus knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 250 professions and 4,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professional (IGP) is the training factory for skill development, which was founded in 2020 and it generates competent candidates to meet demand in the global labor market by providing professional qualifications. The Institute of Global Professional is an education institute that provides social work globally recognized and reportable, with self-student and community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it's not effective to increase one skill just by adding more skills. It's effective to increase one skill by providing holistic social work and education. IGP provides training to general professionals and professionals who are interested in global labor market by providing professional qualifications. So we provide effective training and consultation to general profession generation all over the world. We distribute our services locally, nationally, and internationally to students, job seekers, job holder, and also for learners to respective campus locations. We are an occupational and dependable institute. IGP is one of the famous online institute from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business product, it's a part of our human rights. Based on our vision, we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinars, seminars, courses, award, quiz competition, mentoring, and counseling, etc. On the other side, we also trying to serve more than 100 premium services for free, like create on portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter, and world knowledge platform for gathering general knowledge which can upgrade all day. Kids learning game, website, free courses, convert sites, and many more. We help to empower you to learn to meet their expectation and dream and become highly skilled people. We implement several training, program, webinar, and offline online courses for youth and learners by professional trainer, speaker, and coaches. Our sessions are conducted by globally renowned professionals to develop all kind of youth and to promote the education of their abilities and personalities. To ensure excellent and in-depth instruction, we arrange with qualified trainer, speaker, and instructor. We extended free services to more than 3 million knowledge seekers in last 3 years. We have affiliation with universities and organizations in 70 different countries. Furthermore, signing with many colleges and organizations have been accomplished. We are working to create a legendary generation of future scholars and citizens who will be accountable. We are constantly prepared to assist all knowledge seekers with valuable service. Spreading knowledge is crucial for the Institute of Global Professionals. We believe that knowledge is love and light and vision. So we try to understand the needs of today's generation and will serve them with good research and practice method. We must have a genuine concern from the learner we represent. More diversity, growth, and innovation are required to lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity. IGP members are committed to offering effective best quality service and continual improvements so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill level and value. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share and tag your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Before we move to the next, let me remind don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friend in the comment box. Your support is very valuable for us. Thank you. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,237 webinars successfully. Wow. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,237 webinars successfully. At present, we are going to start our 1,238 program. Name is Developing School-Based Reading Program. And today our speaker is Sir Alan Dosel, Yangot EDD. Before I hand over the stage to our speaker, sir, I want to share a very little bit about our speaker. Associate Professor in University of Canadian City, Master Teacher 2 in Togagok International High School. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with his presentation. Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. To our viewers all over the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Okay, so once again, my name is Alan D. Yongot. I am an associate professor at University of Caloocan City, master teacher 2 of Tagatog National High School under the Schools Division Office of Malabon City, Capital Region, Philippines. Okay, now before I proceed with my presentation, allow me to say thank you, extend my gratitude to Institute Global Professionals for allowing me to use the platform in sharing this developing school-based reading program. Thank you very much. All right. So without further ado, let us start with this presentation. Let us start with our agenda for this afternoon. So as our introduction, we're going to talk about an overview on the discussion of the learning gap of uh, of our learners due to COVID-19 for more than 2 years of the pandemic. And we're going to talk also about the importance of developing school-based reading program in response to intervention. We understand and we recognize that there is a learning gap, and understanding that doesn't mean that we're going to end up there. That means we have to respond in the form of intervention. Now, as our performance, we are expecting that you're going to localize your reading program, which is intended for the learning gap caused by COVID-19. All right. So once again, if you have questions, if you have some comments, just put it in the chat box, and later on we're going to review on those. We're going to talk about it. Now, what will be our objectives in terms of developing school-based reading program? The first one is we need to help our students succeed in a regular educational setting. That is our primordial goal as educator. We also want to help our students attain a grade level proficiency. We want to ensure that our students are on the level of their competence. And also, we are trying to do this to help them achieve basic and more advanced skills. And at the same time, we want to show progress towards meeting the desired outcomes of this particular grade level. Now, as reading program, we wanted to help our students raise their reading comprehension level. That is very important. Now, let me start with this one. Our main objectives as reading teachers are to instill a love of reading. Okay, that is very important for a language teacher. We need to instill the love of reading because once our learners appreciate reading, it's not difficult for them to develop the multi layered skills in comprehension. Okay, and also we want to provide tools to help students become strategic and at the same time independent readers. That's one of our end goals. We want every learner an independent readers. And of course, we want them to become a solvers in reading. Okay, problem solvers doesn't mean we're just going to solve mathematical equations or mathematical problem. When you say problem solving, using reading comprehension is to analyze problem at hand and use our critical thinking skills in order to solve them. Okay, as teachers, as language teachers, we have to embody these three objectives. We need to instill the love of reading, provide tools to help students become strategic, independent readers, and we need to help them become problem solvers in reading. Now, allow me to start with DepEd Order number 34, series of 2022 in the Philippines. Okay, so this is the preparation of the full face-to-face or the 5 days in-person classes. So the DepEd over or advises all public schools in the division to implement contextualized set of strategies and interventions as part of their school learning recovery and continuity plan, which shall focus on learning remediation and intervention or on addressing learning loss and learning gaps. Okay, once again, it's not just in the Philippines where we encounter this learning loss and learning gaps due to COVID-19. I know in the neighboring countries across the nation, we are experiencing this and we have to address that at this point in time. Last February 2013, the improvement of literacy and numeracy programs and the integration of peace competencies will be some of the priorities of the Department of Education. And that is in addressing also as evaluation for the K-12 curriculum, which is relevant to job-ready, active, and responsive citizens. Because these are our main goals, or these are our goals as how we wanted our learners to be. Now, the question here is, how do we really build system of excellence in our school? How do we develop culture of excellence in our school? That's very important. Building a system of excellence in school will take process, will take time, will take courage. Okay, and that's what we wanted to realize right now. How do we really take all the resources we have in school, okay, or in a particular building that will match the instructional needs of our learners? That is also very important. There are some schools that have limited resources, but it doesn't mean they will not step forward in order to promote excellence in their particular school. We have to be resourceful enough on the things that we have control compared to those things that we don't have control. Okay, we are very good on that, teachers. And at the same time, this aspiration is not just to develop the high performing students, but also to developing learners. All right. So as we develop school-based reading program, since our objective is to uplift the capacity of our learners to the standard or to the expected competencies, we don't have to remember, I mean, we don't have to forget also that there are highest performing students. And it doesn't mean that they are highest performing students, they do not need intervention. They do need intervention. And as we develop our school-based reading program, we have to look at these two phases. highest performing students so they will not get bored, and at the same time developing learners on how they are going to capacitate themselves and bring into the standard expectation of the curriculum. Now, how do we do that in practical, in a doable manner? Because maybe you're going to think, I think it's too ideal. I think it's not doable. Okay, let's talk about it. Maybe we just do not see the big picture on how we're going to do that. And maybe this session will help you how to build that confidence. Now, in a particular school, to make instructional decisions, we must have one process. Okay, and we must, or that must be efficient. Okay, that process must be efficient. That process must be proactive for us to be able to give very good instructional decisions. We have to make sure that that is based on early intervention. Remember, we don't start from zero here. We are talking about the old interventions that we are practicing in school. It's just that maybe because of the migration of learning platforms, we have to recalibrate this intervention. We have to put into something that is relatable and at the same time good for our learners at this point in time. We have to use to match resources to needs. Okay? What are the resources that we have? And what are the needs? We have to meet halfway. And of course, it must be integrated or integrative. We are not making a program which is isolated for a particular discipline. For example, it's just in English, it's just in math or science. We wanted to make it integrative. And also, using that integrative approach, we are addressing the holistic formation of the child inside the classroom in terms of academic needs. Now we have to focus on students' learning. Of course, that is the main goal why we are creating school-based reading program and the rest of the programs that we have in school. It is because we want to address the students' learning. Okay. Now, let's have response to intervention. Okay. We need to respond through that because of RTL. Okay, so response to intervention, as what we all know, this is a practice in providing high quality instructions and interventions that will match the student's needs. Okay, that is one consideration that you have to understand, that the instructional needs and the intervention should match the student's needs, and at the same time, the monitoring process, which is frequently to make decisions about the changes, okay, in order to make instructions and goals and applying that to the child's progress or in response to data in terms of educational decision. Okay, response to intervention is not just a one sitting intervention. Response to intervention should carry a process in which we're going to have it in the process, during process, and of course after. And then we're going to assess or evaluate. Now, RTL, when do we say if our program, if what are the program we are implementing in school is under RTL, what it is and what it is not? Try to look at this. Now, if you are having your school-based reading program and that is focused on instructional program, that is not a response to an intervention. Rather, if you or if your reading program is a framework to implement in an effective practices, therefore we can say that is a response to intervention. Okay, so we cannot implement a program by just focusing on your particular discipline or department. You need collaborative help, collaborative effort from within the school community and even outside or from your stakeholder. If your response to intervention has the same for every school, that means you are not responding to an intervention. Now, if your response to intervention is uniquely designed for each school, that means that is a correct response to an intervention. Why? Because if we're going to realize each school is unique, okay? Schools have different catchment students, and that would depend on their needs. Now, if we're just going to apply one particular intervention to the other school without making some modifications based on the needs of our learners, we are not responding correctly. And the last one is, if you are using it for special education, you are intended, your program is intended for general education, for the talented and gifted initiatives, that is not response to intervention. Because responding to an intervention is an every education initiative. Okay, every education. We are not just focused to some kind of learners. As diverse learners as we have inside the classroom, we have to make sure that every every type of learner, every type of approach that we're going to use would address to the educational initiative. Okay, try to reflect at this point in time. Are we implementing programs, school-based reading program that respond to the intervention, or are we having a school-based reading program that is not actually responding to an intervention, which we thought before that what we are doing is correct. And looking at the table here, you would come to the realization that maybe not. But if your program are anchored to the perspective of response to an intervention, that's very good. You're doing the right thing. You are addressing the needs and the gaps correctly. Now let us talk about guiding principles of RTL. There are guiding principles for us to understand and use this correctly. The first guiding principle is that all students are part of one proactive educational system. Okay? They are part of one proactive educational system. What is proactive? Okay? Let's talk about that, as we believe that all students can learn. Okay, without bias to some kinds of learners, without bias to those learners who have learning difficulties and so on and so forth. Now we have to believe that all learners can learn. Now we also use all available resources to teach all students. Okay, whatever available resources you have there, you don't use that for particular students only, rather we use that to all across. When you say proactive approach, it uses data early to determine students' needs and intervention for you to intervene. That is proactive. You are using the prior data to determine the needs of your learners. If that's what you are doing, that means you are in a proactive approach. However, if you are in a reactive approach, that means the intervention that you are doing is just based after students have shown a history of failure to meet expectations, or when learning flatlines, okay, due to lack of challenge. So, what mindset you have at this point in time? Are you proactive or reactive? Okay. Now, I have here a situation. I want you to use the chat box. Okay, tell me if the situation is reactive or proactive based on the definition that we have. Okay, again, I want you to use the chat box, typing it's either this is a reactive or proactive. All right, so let's start with the first one. Begin the first week of school with intervention support for students in need. Okay. If this is your action, okay, to address certain gap, are you being reactive or proactive? Okay, type it in the chat box. Go ahead. All right. Thank you to those who are responding. Let's see. Doing that means you are proactive. Okay? Doing that means you are proactive because you were able to begin with the first week with an intervention uh without even data about the performance of your learners. Now, how about this one? Assess students after the first month of school. Begin intervention support for students in need at the beginning of the second month of school. Are you being reactive here or proactive? Again, type in your answer in the chat box. Assess students after the first month of school. Begin intervention support for students in need at the beginning of the second month of school. Okay. All right. I know you are sending already your comments or your answer, reactive or proactive. That means this is reactive. Okay. Reactive. Because you waited for another month. You waited for another month to react a particular intervention. All right. How about this one? The pretest shows that most students are missing key enabling skills. Now, you as teacher, you adjusted the unit to include more teaching on enabling skills. Okay. Are you being reactive or proactive here as teacher? If this is what you do you think you are reactive or proactive? Type it in. Okay. Thank you for all your responses. So if your response is proactive, you are correct. Okay, you are correct here because you were able to use the pretest in order to identify that there is a missing key enabling skills. And the moment you identify that, you have to adjust. Okay, you have to adjust so as to avoid the problem to progress. All right. Now, how about this one? Teacher teaches the unit. Then at the end of the unit, most students fail the test. Are you being reactive here or proactive? Type in your answer. Okay, thank you very much for all your responses. Now, if your answer is reactive, you are correct. Okay, because you are reactive in such a way that you have to realize it at the end of the unit due to the failure of students. Now, remember, assessment would happen pre, during, and after. So as you go along with your lesson, as you go along with your informal assessment, you can identify already the difficulties of your learners, and therefore you have to adjust. But the moment you just did that at the latter part, that is reactive. Okay? But if you do that, if you become sensitive enough on the needs of your learners along the teaching and learning process, you are doing the proactive. All right? So I hope I was able to distinguish the difference between proactive and reactive in terms of our decisions inside the classroom. Now, let's proceed to the second guiding principle of response to intervention. Again, teachers, we have to use scientific, research-based instruction. Okay, that is very important. We need to use scientific, research-based instructions for us to be guided, for us to ensure that what we are doing are conducted through research and there are significant findings, there are significant recommendations that we, okay, implementers can use and even avoid if there are things to avoid based on the recommendations. Okay, curriculum and instructional approaches must have high probability of success for most students. That is very important, okay? Why we are implementing school-based reading program? Because we wanted to have high probability of success. That is our first priority. That is our first goal to make successful one and address the needs of our learners. And also use instructional time efficiently and effectively. Okay, so definitely we are bounded with time inside the classroom. How many minutes our learners stay in school, and at the same time, how many minutes we can spend with them because we are handling different sections, right? And with that, we have to use instructional time efficiently and effectively. Now, the third guiding principle of RTL is to use instructionally relevant assessment. Okay? Remember, assessment is our point of reflection whether we are doing the correct thing or we are doing it rightly or not. The assessment will tell us. Now, it should be reliable and valid. Assessment must be reliable and valid. Also, it must be in a multi aspect of purpose. It's not just focused on one purpose. Assessment must come into different purposes for us to use the data and interpret the data correctly. We have what we call screening, which means we are collecting the data for the purpose of identifying, developing, and high-performing students at risk for not having their needs meet or met. Okay, we screen them. What do we mean by we screen them? We identify them as these learners are high-performing students, and these are developing learners, for example. And with that, we can identify already needs of these two extreme, okay, extreme learners we have inside the classroom. Then after that, we need to diagnose, okay? We don't end up in screening only, okay? That would be subjective enough. Rather, we're going to diagnose them. That means we're going to gather information from a multiple sources to determine why students are not benefiting from the instructions. For example, high-performing students, as you diagnose, you will identify why they are not benefiting from the instructions. And at the same time, how about the developing learners? You have to diagnose and identify why they are not benefiting from the instructions. And finally, we're going to have a formative, okay, a progress monitoring. That means we're going to frequently we must have an ongoing collection of information, including both formal and informal data to guide particular instructions. So if we're going to see the process, we screen, then we don't end up screening. We diagnose them. As you diagnose that there is a need why these learners are not benefiting from the instructions, to we have to form an assessment that is frequent, that is ongoing, that is not ended already. Rather, it is developmental formative assessment whether for us to get valid data in order to identify problem in terms of instructions. Okay? Again, third guiding principle is to use instructionally relevant assessments. Now let's proceed to the fourth guiding principle. Use a problem-solving method to make decision based on the continuum of students' needs. Okay, what do we mean by continuum of students' needs? When you say continuum, they have needs, it doesn't mean the needs will end up there. That needs will progress with continuous development, and we have to guide our learners on that continuum of needs. That means we have to provide strong core curriculum, strong instructions, and at the same time assessment, as what we have mentioned. Notice that these three elements are very important to make our school-based reading program become effective. The core curriculum, the standard. When we say core curriculum, that is the standard. When you say instructions, that's how you're going to carry the program. And at the same time, the assessment, how you're going to assess it. Also, we're going to provide increasing level of support based on the intensity of students' needs. Okay? As what I mentioned a while ago, it's a continuum. It depends on the intensity of students' needs. If your students' needs are on this intensity, you have to provide support. Okay, you have to provide support. You're not going to just focus on, for example, high performing, or you're going to focus on developing. Rather, you must be malleable enough. Okay, you must be malleable enough to bend it depends on the needs of our learners. Okay, for that reason, we will be able to solve particular problem and make decisions based on the continuum of the needs of our learners. Try to look at this problem solving framework. Okay, so we started with what's the problem? Okay, as teacher inside the classroom, that is our common question to ourselves. That means we are trying to identify the problem. Okay, then the moment you have an answer for that problem, you're going to analyze it. Okay, why it is occurring, why it is recurring. That's the thing that we have to reflect on. You have to answer that to yourself also. Then the moment you have answer to that questions, definitely you're going to plan for a solution design. And then you're going to implement that. Because since there is a problem, the next question is, what are we going to do about the problem? Knowing the problem will not solve the problem. Okay? Rather, taking actions on that particular identified problem will make us solve the problem. All right? Now, as you intervene, as you design, as you implement your school-based reading program, the next question is it working? Right? Is it working? There are two possible answers. If it's working, go on. Okay? Try some modification to elevate it. Now, the problem is, what if it's not working? What you're going to do? Okay? Do the same process. Start from number one. What's the problem? Why it's not working? Maybe you are responding to a different needs. Okay? Maybe along the way, you did not pay attention on a particular data. Therefore, the intervention design and the implementation got some problem along the way. All right. So looking at the problem solving framework will guide you, okay, how you're going to start, how you're going to end, and how this ending will be a lead question in going back to identifying another problem that will arise. All right. So let us identify the purpose of an intervention. Why do we need to come up to an intervention after all, right? So the first one is we want to provide immediate assistance to the students. Okay, since we are the ones meeting them directly, okay, classroom teachers, we wanted to provide immediate assistance to them. We don't want to progress it as we identify already that there is a need. Since there is a need, we want to provide immediate assistance. Also, we want to continue to gather information and learn how to best meet the educational needs of the students. Remember, there is a continuum. The moment we say continuum, it doesn't mean that there is a problem that arises. It will end up there since you find solution and do intervention and it ends. No, it's not. All right? You have to still gather data, learn from this data for you to be able to use it on how you're going to give more in terms of this continuum. We intervene because we want to solve the problem, right? I know, right? We want to have an intervention because we were able to identify the problem and we want to solve the problem. We also want to determine the conditions that best enable the students to learn. That is also very important. Okay? How they're going to best enable to learn. Because there are some learners failed to learn for some reasons, right? And with that reason, if we're able to get that data, we can identify possible solutions. Now, let's proceed to the five guiding principles or the fifth guiding principle. Data are used to guide instructional decisions. Okay? Data will speak on itself. The data will never lie. The data will be your tool for you to have an instructional decisions. Right decisions. Whatever that problem is at hand, the moment you have data, you have to let the data speak on its own. Now, with that, we have to match the curriculum and the instruction to the assessment data. Okay? We have the curriculum and we do the instructions. At the end, we're going to assess. Now, from that data, we have to use it, okay, to match whether we are achieving the standard of the curriculum or we are doing as the instructions. We need to allocate resources, okay? We need to allocate resources in any program, okay, that we are implementing in school. As what we mentioned a while ago, that is a collaborative effort. You cannot do that alone. Therefore, since you cannot do that alone, you need to allocate resources. You need to get support from either within the school community, from the administrators, or from the stakeholders within the community. The data will speak on it. Okay? And that is a point of reflection to drive you to step forward. Go study more. Go enroll to training workshop. Go and watch some webinars in order to upgrade your knowledge and your competence in developing a program or teaching, to be exact, inside the classroom. Data indicates need. Okay, we need to recognize that. And the question here is, where is your response targeted? Because we need to be focused on what we wanted to solve. Okay, is your school-based reading program wanted to solve a school level? So if your data speaks that there is a need for school level, by all means, go ahead. Is it on a grade level only? Is the data telling us that there is a problem on that particular grade level? So please target the grade level. Is it in a classroom level? Okay. Is the data telling you that there is a problem inside the classroom? So by all means, once again, focus on classroom level. Now, if it's not, maybe it's just in a small group level. You can do that also. All right. You can do that if it's a small group level. And more if it's an individual student level. Okay. So there are different scenarios. There are different situations in our respective schools. Okay. I would be happy to read later on if you can share some. Okay. Is the data that you have right now needs a school level, grade level, classroom level, small group level, or individual students level? Okay. Remember our premise. Okay. Our baseline here are the students affected by COVID-19. Okay, affected by COVID-19. How are they right now inside the classroom since they go back to face-to-face or in-person classes? Okay, using your data, do you think you need to create a reading program that would address on the school level, grade level, classroom level, small group level, or individual students level? So I know you have your unique problem, a specific problem in your school. Now let's provide the sixth guiding principle of response to intervention. That means quality professional development supports effective instructions for all students. Okay, you need to provide ongoing training and support to assimilate new knowledge and skill. Like what we are doing right now, we are providing ongoing training and at the same time ongoing support in order to understand what is happening in our school. And understanding them will only lead us to come up with a better school-based reading program. All right? Now, anticipate, you need to anticipate to be willing to meet the newly emerging needs based on the student's performance. As what I have mentioned also a while ago, there is a migration already in the teaching and learning process. And from that migration, we teachers must be equipped enough to embrace okay, to embrace that particular new things in the teaching and learning. We're not supposed to stand back and leave on what our old practices, and considering that here in front of us things are changing already. What do we need to do is to step forward also. Since it's changing, you also should change. That's why you need to attend quality professional development support. Okay? Quality. That means do not just attend trainings, do not just attend webinars, do not just attend some upskilling and reskilling program without really identifying, okay, the quality of that in your improvement. Of course, how you're going to bring that down to your learners. We're going to differentiate professional development based on knowledge and expertise needs. Okay? What are your expertise? Focus on that. What are your knowledge about this? You have to strengthen it. You have to capacitate yourself. You have to find ways for you to be able to become, what we call this, for you to become upfront of what is happening right now. So that's the sixth guiding principle. The seventh guiding principle is leadership. Leadership is very important. We know that, right? Now, you have to have a strong administrative support to ensure commitment and resources. That's very important. Our relationship to our administrator. That's why sometimes some school-based reading program, and when the school do not support, it's difficult. Again, it is a collaborative. Once again, collaborative. It must be coming from the support of the administration, going back to your colleagues, and at the same time to the parents and other stakeholders before our students will benefit from it. Okay? You need their commitment. You need their resources. It may not be financial. Okay? It may not be financial, but you need them. And for you to do that, you have to establish leadership. Also, you must have strong teacher support to share in the common goal of improving instructions. As what I have mentioned also, it's not just specific on your subject. We're not just talking about English here. We're also talking different disciplines. We're also talking about math. We're talking about science and other subjects inside the classroom. Okay? And strong teacher support from that will make your program easier, okay, will make your program flow as smooth as it's possible and get authentic result, authentic data that you can use for an assessment or reflection. We're going to build leadership team to build internal capacity and sustainability over time. This one is very important also. Okay, sustainability over time. It doesn't mean the program is what we call this, it is proposed for 1 year, and after 1 year it will end up there. No, it's not. Okay, you need to sustain that over time, especially if findings show that there is an impact to your learners. That means it is addressing a particular problem and it is solving that particular problem. And therefore, you have to sustain that over time. And sustaining over time doesn't mean you're just going to repeat what just happened last year. Okay? It means sustainability means adapting what are the things that you need to adjust on your program so as to address the needs of your learners, because it's changing. Over 1 year, it's changing. And if you will not change, you will not sustain that. And you will get frustrated whether your program is beneficial or not anymore. Let us try to understand response to intervention at this particular glance. Okay? So for step number one, all students at grade level, for example, you're going to screen them. Okay? You're going to sort them. Whether that is proficient learners, you're going to have the average, you're going to have developing, and more if there are learners who are still non-readers. Okay? Now, from step number one, you need to understand three domains. Okay? The green one is curriculum. Okay? The green one, the letter C, 80 to 90% of the curriculum must be achieved of these learners. That is the standard. Now, the 5 to 10% is talking about letter S, supplementary. That is the support. Whenever, for example, the curriculum, there are learners who will not master the standard, okay, the expected competencies, there will be supplementary. That is 5 to 10%. Now, the red one, the letter I is intensive. That means intensive, these are the learners that has red flag. That means they are really far from the expected competency that they have to master on that particular level. Now, you have to understand these three layers, this three level, because as you go to step number two, you're going to diagnose and you're going to have an assessment. Okay? If you have the 80 to 90% achieved in step number two, you don't have to do diagnostic anymore. You don't do that. But you need to have diagnostic or group diagnostic to 5 to 10% of your learners. And at the same time, individual diagnostic to this 1 to 5% learners whom we identified as non-readers or definitely in a frustration level. All right, so that's the step number two. If your learners achieve 80 to 90%, no need to diagnose or make an assessment. Rather, you focus on the supplementary and intensive for group diagnostic and individual diagnostic. Okay? Now, if you go proceed to step number three, definitely there are instructions. Now, if it's 80 to 90% of your learners achieve that, continue with the core. That means they are following. That means they are on the expected level of competence. All right. However, there are still some who would have problem in terms of instructions. The supplementary. Okay, you're going to group them into a small group or in a differentiated or by skill because there are only particular group who will be needing that instructions. Now, if our problem is the intensive, that means there's an individual diagnostic. You have to individualize intensively. Okay, individualize them because that's what they need. All right. Now, for step number four, of course, if 80 to 90% of the curriculum is being achieved, results and monitoring is just as easy as that. Okay, you're just going to give the grades, the classroom assessment, the yearly assessment and evaluation, and so on and so forth. Now, the problem here is for the supplementary because for the supplementary, you need to have your monitoring 2 times a month. 2 times a month, whether your approach is effective or not. Because if it's not effective, you have to change it along the way. Okay, you're not going to make it until the end and then assess it at the end. Now, since it's effective, you're just going to bear with the result. No, it's not. Along the way, you have to assess 2 times a month. Now, with that assessment twice a month, when you see some significant, not really error, but significant problem, do rectify it. Do some actions in order to get result. All right. Now, for intensive, you have to check it. You have to make your assessment and monitoring weekly because they are really poor. Because you really need to give intensive. All right. So in here also, more information about that is for the step number one, teacher will make sure that all students have been given the particular assessment, whatever assessment you wanted to give, and all data has been entered. Remember, you have to enter data. You need to record the data. Then a copy of the class-wide data, which is printed. That may be questionnaire, that would be other concerns. And of course, the teacher will calculate what percent of the class is at benchmark. Okay, benchmark means they need support at that point in time because they cannot be independent. Okay, they cannot be independent yet. We need to benchmark. Now, if below 80%, you need to determine the core. Okay, the instructions needs, and at the same time, if there are questions or concern. Now, after that, you need to review all the students' data, determine if there is need to additional diagnostic assessment, ensure diagnostic assessments that are given. You're going to bring all the grade level data for you to make sense of them. And of course, on the grade level data meeting, you're going to discuss briefly additional changes because there is a need. Okay, you need to share the data, the gathered data. You need to group your kids with similar instructional needs. Okay, because sometimes along the way, some learners able to go to, for example, intensive, and then eventually the child was able to get it and be promoted to supplementary, and this supplementary eventually they're going to have the expected core curriculum, and that's good if we're able to transform the child that way. Okay, then we're going to compare the group intervention if they are doing rightly. Okay, the question here is what, who, when, where in terms of instructions. If any changes are made during the intervention period, you have to document them. You have to document them because you will be needing these data at the end. Okay, reflection of your program. Attach the implementation log if there are in terms of graphs also. Set the date to meet back up in terms of checking in. All right. Now, meeting the needs of all, the core, the supplemental, and intensive, we have to meet the curriculum, the instruction, and assessment. I mentioned this already a while ago. Curriculum, instruction, and assessment. When you say curriculum, as what I've mentioned, it is designed to provide literally or literacy diet. Okay, that's why we have, for example, the K to 12 curriculum here in the Philippines. We have the most essential learning competencies, and these are distributed, okay, across grading period. All right. It's just as if we are planning what food to eat on a daily basis. And that would be sufficient enough to ensure good literacy outcome for the majority of the students. And the core literacy diet will benefit all, but it will not sufficient for some students. Okay, especially if these are advanced. But some of these literacy diet will definitely difficult to achieve also. Now, for supplementary, it is an addition to and aligned with the district core cycle or use more explicit instructions, provide more intensity, additional modeling and guiding feedback, immediate feedback, and take note, supplementary does not replace core. Okay, we have to understand that the core is the curriculum. Whatever supplementary we use in order to patch in the needs of our learners, it will never replace the core. The core is the core, and that is non-negotiable. Okay, what is literacy diet in the nutshell if we're going to understand it? This is a powerful literacy diet to ensure good literacy health. Okay, for example, it's food pyramid. Okay, food pyramid. Try to look at this diagram. The most that we have to give, and the child must have vocabulary comprehension. If it's in vocabulary comprehension, our learners got deficit. Okay, that means they lack of. It's difficult to elevate it on the accuracy, fluency of reading and connected text. I know it makes sense, right? And at the same time, it would be difficult also for the child to give the phonemic awareness and alphabetical principle. Okay, we're going to really get these three diet for us to be able to give literacy diet to our learners in order to avoid learning poverty. Okay, you know that we are suffering right now from a learning poverty. Now try to look at this data. It says that this is the struggling readers, just making progress isn't good enough. For example, the arrows, you establish benchmark, okay, and you are doing it correctly. You come up with emerging strategic, you're doing it correctly. And at the same time, with a deficit in an intensive. Look at the progression. This is not what we wanted to achieve. Rather, this is what we wanted to achieve. Okay? We want curriculum, instructions, and assessments are working together. Okay? From established benchmark down to the intensive, we are aiming one particular goal, and that is to close the gap. To close the gap. That is either school level, that is grade level, or even down to individual or group level. Our goal is to close the gap, the learning gap. Now, this is the intensive cycle students who are less than proficient. Let us focus on that, which is the intensive. Because as we develop reading program, our reading program usually focus more on developing or struggling readers. Now, it is an addition to and aligned with the district core cycle. Use diagnostic data to make more precise in terms of target to students' need. You can be smaller in terms of instructional group, be more instructional in time. You have to be more in detailed modeling and demonstration in terms of skill. Since they are really less proficient, that means you have to model it to them. You have to demonstrate it to them. You have to be more intensive opportunities for guiding practice. Okay, you have to provide them more activities, intensive activities, more opportunities for error correction and feedback. Okay, this one is very important for error correction and feedback, because the moment the child identified that there's an error, the child can somehow and eventually make his or her own correction. And when the child realized that, okay, it's easier now for us to give feedback, positive and developmental feedback. Intensifying instructions has big five. That is, it should be more explicit, more modeling, more systematic, more opportunities to respond, and more review. Okay, with this more, try to try to reflect on the school-based reading program that you have right now. Do you think you are giving more explicit instructions? Do you think you are giving more modeling to your learners, more systematic? And how about the opportunities to respond since they are now back inside the classroom? How about, did you review already your instructions? Because maybe along the way there are some modifications to be done and you didn't notice. Okay, these big five will let you realize that there is something that I need to do more in terms of my school-based reading instructions. Okay, try to look at this diagram also. Okay, check classroom and behavior management. Now, things to consider when students is not making the expected gains. The first one is instruction matched to students' needs? That's usually our problem, right? We don't realize that what we give are not really matched to the needs of our learners. The next question is the program being taught with integrity? Okay, with integrity. That is a question that we need to think about. Is instructional time adequate for students' needs? Time. Remember, we need to really give ample time for the students to adjust or to even process, especially if it's activities. Okay, we need to give them time, ample time to process. Now, is our students meeting within the program success criteria? If not, that means there's something wrong. Is the progress monitoring data reliable and valid? Then what changes do you do and do you want to expect to see first? Then finally, is our students generalizing skills on progress monitoring, or the program that we are creating is for the sake of compliance. All right, that is something that we have to really think about. Remember, we are developing school-based reading program for the benefits of the learners, not for compliance purposes, not just for you to say that you have the reading program, because you are defeating the purpose. Okay, you are defeating the purpose. Now, let us proceed to core assumptions. The core assumption of developing a school-based reading program is that the school observe core curriculum or standards and benchmarks. That one. Teacher possess a repertoire of research-based instructional strategies and practices to deliver that curriculum. Okay, one. Again, one is we must know the curriculum. Second one, we must have the repertoire of research-based instructional strategies. Then we must have our instructions within the core cycle in implemented and design. Now, curriculum and instructions are aligned within the core cycle, and assessment are aligned with the district curriculum division or school as we assess in teaching. Okay, if these core assumptions are manifestations that you have all these, that means it's easier for us to come up with a school-based, reliable school-based reading program. Now, is our core cycle sufficient? Have we identified things like screening tools? Have we identified scoring guide or points on the screening tools for the highly proficient and the developing? Do we collect universal screening data? Do we enter, organize, and summarize data? Okay, so these are the things that we have to talk. And what are the considerations that we have to take? One, research. Is it research-based? Okay. What about the mandates of the Department of Education or Ministry of Education, wherever we are? How about the availability of resources that are needed to support students? Okay, you have to calculate the actual students number in mind. You have to do the math as you go with the resources. Now, for example, 60% is proficient, range 10% is highly proficient with a core alone, total of 70%. Now, there are 30% less than proficient. And that is our consideration, the 30%. Remember, here in the Philippines, no student should be left behind. And this 30% is very important. 30% of total students per grade level. Is it 30% times 100 students, 30 students per grade level is receiving support? Or do you have the resources needed to support this number of students? See, your administrator is allocating budgets for the program in order to address these learners. So these are considerations that we have to understand, because developing a school-based reading program or any reading program will never progress without the support, without the resources, proper resources. These are the considerations. What about the core comprehensive reading program? Is it based on school-based reading research? Do you think it addressed the essential component of reading? Okay. For example, in elementary, do you think it addressed the phonemic awareness, the phonics, the fluency in connected, the vocabulary and comprehension? Because these are for elementary. These are the basics that we need to develop to our learners. Now, for secondary, for the adolescent, do you think the word knowledge, the decoding of vocabulary, do you think they master that? How about fluency in connected text? How about comprehension and writing? Okay, so that's for adolescent. Now, we have to understand that coherent design of explicit instructional strategies and sequence is very important, as we have ample practice of opportunities in any reading program. Materials that are appropriate to students' level, you can group them. Materials aligned with the standard and benchmarks, adequate time for quality instructions, and you have to provide interventions in the classroom and supplemental instructions. More practice, be strategic, okay? Practice, and practice. More activities in order to acquire the target skill. More teaching, okay? More teaching. You really have to teach. Okay? What we mean by teaching is not just a one-time teaching inside the classroom. Teaching can also happen even outside the four corner of the classroom. And you have to just be strategic in developing reading program. More teaching and more practice. You have to combine that to become intensive. Okay? It includes assessment, screening, that is the first alert. That is the first red flag from screening itself. Diagnostic, that is evaluation, and critical components of literacy diet. All the components are important. Okay, we have to understand that. We don't have to miss one. There's no shortcut on this. There are prerequisites. That means all are important. The components do not fight with each other. We don't have to tell them that this is more important, the other one is less important. As what I've mentioned, they need each other. Different students will require different levels of instructions, and we know that, to acquire and apply the skills contained in essential component. Now, in harnessing the power of literacy diet, for us to use the literacy diet effectively, one thing that we have to realize, identify the critical features of the instructions. What does the research say? Okay? Do research, make research, read more and more, okay? And gather the data, gather the findings, recommendations, conclusions in order to identify the critical features of your instructions. Identify high priority skills for each grade level. What is the critical features of your instructions? Skills of comprehension. You have to teach strategy, routine explicitly. You have to display poster or give students a bookmark containing the steps of the strategy so they can just review or recall it. When teaching the strategy to students, use the following three steps. Explain the concept. Okay, that's the first thing. You explain the concept. Then you model the strategy at the listening level. You model the strategy at the listening level. Then the third one, you model the strategy at the reading level. Okay, there are layers. Okay, there are spheres that you have to break through. Okay, from explaining the concept to the modeling in the listening, and at the same time modeling on the reading level. Now, intervention lessons must be taught systematically and religiously in order for students to accelerate their growth in their area. Must be taught systematically, religiously. Okay, that means consistency is one of the key. Okay, one of the keys for you to make your intervention or reading program more effective. Needs more opportunities than typical students to apply the strategies they are learning. That means you have to give more opportunities, more practice, more exposure. If we're talking about phonetics, more exposure on sounds. If we're talking about sentences, more exposure on sentences. If we're talking about vocabulary, more on exposure on vocabulary. Then select texts that are students' independent reading level. Okay? Again, this one is very important. It must be on the reading level of your learners. Because if not, they will get frustrated. And the moment they get frustrated, they will detach themselves from the approach that you are trying to inject. Okay, so let us conceptualize it in this way. Okay, I hope you're going to be with me on this one. Where do you begin? That's the very first question. For example, you have the reading program already, but it seems like it's not working. Thing is, Maybe you don't have the reading program, school-based reading program, and this is the time that you wanted to develop one. Okay, so please be with me as I explain this diagram. The first question here of where do you begin? Is there a need to improve primary level reading outcomes? If your answer is yes, that's good. If your answer is no, it's maybe not appropriate to program under the goal number one. Rather, if your answer is yes, do you have valid, reliable reading assessment data? Okay. If the question is, do you need to improve? If your answer is yes, do you have valid and reliable reading assessment data? If your answer is no, conduct reading assessment. If your answer is yes, you have already, base it on reading assessment. Is there a willingness to address core issue? Okay. Is there a willingness to address that kind of problem? If the answer is no, maybe it's not appropriate. But if the answer is yes, proceed with the reading program design. Okay, I hope you were able to follow. Yes, 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 you will need to proceed with the reading program design. The moment you answer no, it will end up on not being appropriate to create a particular program. Okay, if your problem is you don't have the reading assessment data, maybe you can conduct reading assessment through your learners using the tools, available tools or approved by experts tools. This one, assessment and measurement. Okay, so here again, this might be your guide on how you're going to develop your reading program, school-based reading program. Do you have assessment data at that level? Maybe that is national, regional, school-based, and whatever. If your answer is yes, does it assess students' performance on prioritizing reading goals and objectives? If your answer is yes, is the data used to improve instructions? Okay. If your answer is yes, no need to develop another assessment. If your answer is no, is there staff that can develop the assessments? Okay, because developing assessment is not just a matter of you can do it. Okay, you need experts to develop assessment tool to make it valid. For the second question, is the data used to improve instructions? Your answer is yes. No need to develop another system because you have already. But if your answer is no, you have to determine why the data is not being used and provide support to develop training. Okay, so that is thing. Now, if your answer is yes about the staff who can develop assessment, identify and provide support. Are there staff, are there teachers in school that can identify and provide support in developing assessment? Yes, by all means, help. But if there's none, you need a program to build capacity as the assessment in developing material. Okay, so that is a point of reflection to our administrators also that we cannot come up with the best reading program. Maybe because one, we don't have group, okay, we don't have right people to develop assessment, and therefore we need to address that, right? Now, if your answer on the very first question, do you have assessment data? If your answer is no, the next question there is there a staff available to develop an instructional material? If your answer is yes, identify them and provide support. And if there's none, again, you need to look for capacity building, okay? Capacitate the teachers so that they may know how to develop instructional material that can localize the needs in your community or in your school. That is as a matter of assessment and measurement. How about for the teacher? Okay, for the teacher. Now, is in-service professional development adequate and ongoing? Okay, we know that. We have that, right? So if your answer is yes, does it build teachers' reading content, knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and assessment knowledge? Okay. If your answer is yes, no need to change. But if your answer is no, use that assessment data to identify gaps and develop a process for systematically addressing them because there's a need for a teacher to capacitate. right? Now, if on the first question, there's another answer, are teachers implementing well? This one is very important. Our role inside the classroom and in any reading program, our role as classroom teachers are very vital, very important, because we are the ones who are going to implement that. Okay? If your answer is yes, no need to change. But if your answer is no, are effective delivery practices used? Did these teachers use the effective delivery practices? Or does it even distributed the formats that are used? Or is it cohesive, these materials to provide and so on? Okay. If the answer is yes to this question, no need to change. However, if the answer is no, you need to identify reasons: lack of resources, not enough training, lack of support, and develop a program to address the issue. And if you were able to go down to that perspective, administrators and even your department would identify that there's something that you need to do to capacitate the teachers. All right. Now, if your question and the very first question is in-service professional development adequate and ongoing? If the answer is no, use that kind of assessment in order to develop training. Okay, training, upskilling and reskilling of teachers in order to come up with a school-based reading program. Now, let us align the standards, the curriculum, and the material. This one also is one of the considerations. It's not enough that the teachers are giving priority. It's not enough that we know the process and so on and so forth. But we have to see the connection from the standards, the curriculum, and the materials. Now, do you have a core reading program with documented research based on content that is aligned with the standards? Think about it. Do you have that? Okay. If your answer is yes, does it include the 5 components of reading and systematic instruction? Okay. If your answer is yes, are teachers trained to implement the program? If your answer is yes, no need to modify the curriculum. Okay. If on the first question, does it include the 5 component, your answer is no, which component are missing? And how can they be included? Do you have staff to be able to develop the material? If your answer is yes, identify and provide support. Now, if your answer is no, need a program to build capacity as a curriculum is developed. Okay? Now, if your answer to the first question is no right away, do you have staff that will be able to help you develop the material? If the answer is yes, identify and provide support. If the answer is no, again, need a program to build capacity as a curriculum is developed. Okay? That's how we're going to ask the status of our school-based reading program. And answering these questions will lead us into a sensible school-based reading program that you're going to develop. Now, the last thing here is about aligning standards, curriculum, and materials. Is there a management system in place? Management system, it is because, again, we migrate already from the old teaching and learning process. And some, we have management system in place. Or we have the LR, okay, LRDM. If your answer is yes, does it include shared goals, distributed responsibilities, and accountability processes? If your answer is yes, does it include a focus on children's learning? And are the components of reading prioritized? If your answer is yes, no need to change. However, if your answer is no, you need to prioritize these areas until students' outcome are at an acceptable level. That is our goal, right? That our learners will be an acceptable level. Now, if the problem is at the very first question, is there a management system in place? No. Evaluate and identify the barriers to sustainable system because you need that. Okay? Now, if your answer is no on the second question, evaluate to determine which component are missing and which need to be strengthened. All right? So realizing this, maybe you are now thinking, did we come up with the reading program with due considerations of these things? If the answer is yes, good job. You're doing the right thing. If not, please recalibrate your school-based reading program and make some reflections. Remember that creating a school-based reading program or in any reading program will not just be a job of one person. Okay? It is or it must be a collaborative effort within the community because there are things that you might not see while other members of the community observe, and that data is valid enough for you to come up with a better reading program. You might think that your reading program now is the best so far, but when you realize and listen to some feedbacks from your teachers or parents, stakeholders outside, you will realize that, yes, there's something that I need to do more. I need to recalibrate my school-based reading program. Okay? Now, these are the things that I want you to reflect. If you want to see that your learners are in the level of their competence, you have to teach how they get there. Now, as you teach, it is important that you must assess. Okay, you must assess. Now, as you assess, assessment will not be the be all and end all. You have to analyze the result. And the result will be used to guide instructions. Okay? Now, after that, after analyzing, it doesn't mean it's the end. That means you assess again. You assess again. You see if the instructions are making sense, if it becoming effective or not. All right. So yes, I know you know that and you were able to do that in your respective community, but these are just things to reflect. Thank you for listening, and we are now entertaining questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your rich content presentation, which can impact our knowledge seeker surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seeker can learn something new, which was our only intention. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seeker. Once again, thank you so much, dear sir, for your presentation. Now, sir, it's time for the question answer session. The
Yes.
one more valuable part of our regular routine. Honorable sir, please stay with us. After a short video, we will be back in our session part 2, which is the question answer part. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have an webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification and online quiz competition. back, sir. Welcome back to our participants. Sir, our first question is from Ishaya. Sir Alan Younger.
Yes.
1. What is a student continuum? 2. What are the three levels of literacy diet? 3. What is the difference between assessment and measurement?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So let me answer the first one. What is students' continuum? Students' continuum in terms of learning gap, okay, in terms of learning gap, and at the same time, in terms of learning capacity. Continuum is that we do not identify them on the first level of their difficulties. That means it progress. Okay, that means there are more problems, more difficulties that our child is experiencing. And we don't just end on one particular part. Rather, it is a continuous from that perspective, from one going to the next part of the problem of the child. Now, what are the three levels of literacy diet? So the three levels of literacy diet are just like in the food pyramid. What are the basic competence of our learners that we need to give? The first one is definitely the vocabulary. Okay, vocabulary. But if we're going to look at how many percent or what more we can give, that would be vocabulary as the most. Okay, most that we have to give, because after that vocabulary we're going to get into the second level where we're going to have some identifying sentences and structure until phonemics and phonemes is being given. Okay, what is the difference between assessment and measurement? Okay, assessment is basically the one that we use, okay, the one that we use in order to identify the data. And then the measurement is the one or the tool that we use to interpret the data or the assessment that we have at hand. Okay, thank you, Isaiah Tiangvi, for that question.
Thank you so much, sir, for your answer. So our next question is from Leo Team. What are the indicators of successful implement of the program and how frequently will this be monitored? Thank you in advance.
Okay, thank you very much again for that question. What are the indicators of a successful implementation of the program? Okay, so basically, you need to get the assessment. Okay, now from that assessment, you're going to interpret and analyze the data. Now, as you analyze and interpret the data, you have to go back to the curriculum. Okay, is it in compliance with the objective that you want to achieve? Okay, if it answers or if it addresses that thing, that is one indicator that there is a successful implementation of the program. Now, for the next question, how frequent will this be monitored? Okay, it depends upon what particular students we are in the program. For example, if these are intensive, that means they are non-readers or they are indeed frustration in terms of level, we need to evaluate it weekly. Okay, we need to evaluate it weekly. But if they are on the average, we can have it two times a month, twice a month. Now, if they are skilled already, maybe we can just have it once in a quarter. Okay, and this way or through this, we can identify that they are doing as the core and at the same time instructions, and will be guiding them to reach the expected output during the assessment or on the assessment part of the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your answer. Sir, our next question is from Facebook user. How do you make an effective school-based reading program?
Okay, how we're going to make an effective school-based reading program. First and foremost, you have to read. Okay, read based on research. Okay, then after that, focus on your school community, gather data. Okay, now from your research and your gathered data, you have to combine them. As you combine them, find the specific needs you need on your community or in your school. And from there, you can draft, okay? You can draft a system of instruction. And from that system of instruction, you need to involve the entire community. You need to involve the teachers, the administrators, the parents, and at the same time, the other stakeholders. And it will only be effective if it's a shared effort. It will only be effective if everyone is doing their share. Even how good your school-based reading program, even how sophisticated it may be, even how it is updated, even how we realize that that is the need of today's demand of learning gap. If there's no support, okay, coming from within and outside the community, it will never be effective. Okay, all you need to realize is that you have to create a school-based reading program in such a way that everyone is involved, everyone is having their shared responsibility in order to make the program effective. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your answer. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker, and thank you. After question answer, we have an webinar certification and online quiz competition. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have an webinar certification and online quiz competition. Sir, I think we covered all the questions from our participants. So once again, thank you so much, Honorable Sir, for your time in IGP. We have learned a lot from you with new topic. It will add some value to our day-to-day activity along with our academic and professional growth. Honorable Sir, hope to see you with a new topic and a new day. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Sir, before we move to the next, our webinar certification process, if you want to leave this studio, we can, sir. IGP Knowledge Seeker is time for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, please, sorry. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the webinar certification process, the most attractive and powerful part of our regular webinar. After a short video, we will start our webinar certification. After webinar certification, we have an online quiz competition and quiz certification. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, today our webinar topic is developing school-based reading program and our webinar code is IGP6285. Our webinar code is IGP6285. Without code, no one is eligible for certificate. With code, you claim your certificate anytime. How to claim each certificate? Go to www.edigp.com, click sign in, log in if you already have an account or create a new account if you are new. Once log in, click free webinar, select the webinar title, click continue course, get enroll if you haven't enrolled yet. Type the code in your certificate code box, click get your certificate. It is auto downloaded in PDF file already. Just check it in your file manager or download folder. Don't forget to leave a review in our FB page, website, and in Google. Dear IGP Knowledge Seeker, it's time for the most engaging part of this webinar, which is an online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition properly, please follow my instruction carefully. Go to www.slido.com and find today's quiz or scan this QR code for direct joining. Quiz code is afternoon. After a short video, we will start our quiz session and don't forget to mention your friend to join our quiz session. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is afternoon. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is afternoon. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is afternoon. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is afternoon. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is afternoon. Please join in Slido with the code and the code is afternoon. With 26 people, we are going to start our quiz session after 1 minute. So please mention your friend to join our quiz session. Our first question is the first step of developing a training program is to option 1 assess the needs of the group, option 2 review training programs offered in other locations. 9 seconds is left to answer the question. Let's see the right answer. Already 78 people answered the first option. Yes, the right answer is the first one, assess the needs of the group. In the leaderboard, we can see that Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our second question is reading a story. Option 1 social, option 2 emotional. Please log your answer. Only 12 seconds left to answer these questions. Option 1 social is the right answer. 41% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our third question is shared reading is option 1 sharing thought process while demonstrating strategy. Option 2 practicing reading skills in isolation. Option 1 sharing thought processing while demonstrating strategy is the right answer. 100% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Jimalayan is holding the first position. Our fourth question is Scoffroll oblique guided reading is not option 1. Explicitly teaching the same skill to the whole class, option 2. Practicing before, during, and after strategy. Option 1. Explicitly teaching the same skill to the whole class is right answer. 78% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Himalayan is holding the first position. Our fifth question is early reading instruction forced on option 1. Reading laws which the citizen needed to follow. Option 2. Scripture reading. Option 2. Scripture reading is the right answer. 50% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our sixth question is that to determine the reading level of a text, option 1, count the hash of word with more than one syllable. Option 2, count the hash of paragraphs. We'll see. Option 1, count the hash of words with more then one syllable is the right answer. 69% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our seventh question is a comprehensive orientation paragraph should be organized within option 1, a box, option 2, a three-ring binder. Option 2, a three-ring binder is right answer. 50% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our eighth question is upon reading the lesson objective the learner should have option 1 a clear understanding of what is to be accomplished, option 2 some idea of what is expected, option 1 a clear understanding of what is to be accomplished. Right answer. 85% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our ninth question is a nutrition surveillance program is designed to option 1 confirm result of annual nutrition service, option 2 identify the nutritional needs of the population, option 2 identify the nutritional needs of the population is the right answer. 89% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Hippocrates is holding the first position. Our last and final question of this session is individualizing a program for child means option 1 using what you know about each child to plan your day, option 2 planning activity based on things children can't do, option 1 using what you know about each child to plan your day is right answer. 85% people are right here. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. Slido will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our webinar online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. Slido will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. Congratulations to our online quiz competition winner top 10. Congratulations again. Slido will take a few minutes for finalizing the result, and after that we will issue our online quiz competence certificate on our official Facebook page and group Institute of Global Professional. At the end moment of our session, we can say properly feed skill never stop learning, cause life never stop teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. See you again and again. We want your participation in every program. If you want to live a happy life, tie it to a goal, not to people or things. Albert Einstein. Before I say or hit end like button once again, thanks to all IGP knowledge seeker for your active participation as always. See you again in the next session. Thank you.